you guys a little bit about HomeStories today. We're going to talk about bringing the Eden Walk and HomeStories, more specifically to your K through 12 classroom. We're going to participate in a HomeStories cafe. These based off a model that we've used on our team that's been super successful so far. And then we're going to invite you to create your home story. So that's our lineup for today. And in the interest of and the philosophy of the Out of Eden Walk, I want to slow myself down by taking a deep breath because there's so much goodness here to share with you guys today, but I also want to do it slowly and purposefully and meaningfully. So as educators, we're bouncing all over the place. I want to remind myself first and foremost, and invite all of us to slow down and just be present in this experience and enjoy it. So here we go. Um, you guys have familiarity there. I'm going to show this video. Hopefully it will work. All right, I think I have to mute myself.
Where can we go to find meaning? Connection. Some greater truth. We live in a golden age of communication, but often we're lost in it.
The deadly violence and chaos.
The news comes at us faster than ever before. It polarizes and divides us. What's missing is meaning. That's why I've been walking continuously across the world since 2013. As a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and National Geographic Fellow, I struggled with gaps in my own reporting because I had to move too quickly. Now, I'm gathering the stories of the people I meet and writing about the global issues I encounter at root level, one footstep at a time. My name is Paul. I'm Paul Salopek, and my project is the Out of Eden Walk. Seven years ago, I set out on foot from Africa's Rift Valley and began my journey to Tierra del Fuego in South America. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of our ancestors who, pushed by famines and competition and pulled by a tireless quest for resources, spread out of Africa to discover the world. Over the last 11,000 miles, I have followed their footsteps, writing about our own struggles with similar problems today. And in this way, the Out of Eden Walk has become a unique global studio for a different kind of storytelling, what we're calling slow journalism. Whether the topics are climate change, mass migration, or a fraying environment, the journey's storytelling has reached a global audience of tens of millions. Out of Eden Walk has published 8 articles in National Geographic magazine and almost 400 online dispatches, an unprecedented level of coverage in National Geographic's history. Millions more readers find the walk's storytelling elsewhere. Our social media following continues to expand, and our narratives have been shared globally in 34 languages. Sometimes people ask, what's the most profound gift of the walk? And that's easy. It's not mine anymore. It's a journey shared. We've built a global community of thoughtful, slow storytellers in our wake, dedicated to promoting people-to-people connectivity across borders. National Geographic helped us pioneer slow journalism workshops for young media professionals in India, whose work has been seen by 25 million readers. Project Zero at Harvard innovated an award-winning education program that links thousands of students across the world to the walk. The Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting uses the walk's lessons in classrooms across the United States. And to think we've still 14,000 miles ahead of us. Come walk with us. Join our global coalition of storytellers as we walk together into a challenging new century. The journey, a belongs to everyone. We need good pathfinders now more than ever. Slow down and look and listen. Take time to tell the story.
Okay, let me get back to, there we go. Okay. Okay, so that's just a quick new video that the kids like to see, and also encourages them to become pathfinders and join the global coalition of people that are working together on these missions. So there's a couple of different classroom resources for Adavine Walk itself, which I think you've already been introduced to. But what I want to share with you today that might be new, hopefully, is the remote learning resources by this is the Adavine Walk nonprofit. So on this page, and I'm going to share this whole slideshow with you so that you have all the links. And oftentimes I've linked the image of the website. So if you click on this, we have all of our remote learning resources in one place, and they can be used whether you're remote or in a hybrid model or back fully in school. I'm using it right now in a remote environment, and it's working well. So here we have all the resources in one place. Um, so there's a number of partners, as you know. Um, our resources that we've created for the home stories are here under Adavine Walk Chicago. The reason is to give a very quick history is that as part of Adavine Walk Chicago, we started this global map with Esri. And it used to land in Chicago. It used to be all Chicago stories. And as of a week or two ago, um, and you guys helped us move along in this, we wanted to make it a global home stories page on Esri. So we want both our kids to be able to understand their neighbors through storytelling, others understand kids who or adults who live in different neighborhoods different than theirs in Chicago, to understand those neighborhoods and find commonalities. But we also want them to see your home stories and see what life is like in Virginia. You know, is it similar, is it different, are we going through some of the same things? We know that we are. So we've now made it global home stories. So the reason the resources for students are there is because it was a Chicago project initially. Um, and where we can go from here, time will tell. It's a great creative group that's open to connecting kids, connecting adults, just connecting our pathfinders along the way with Paul. So here we have, you'll find the other resources for other um, organizations, Nat Geo, Project Zero at Harvard, and of course, Pulitzer Center, where Joy is from. And then here we have our team here. So if you click, not now, but later, the main map is homestoryproject.org. And you can follow on Facebook, Instagram, all of our social media accounts. But there is an activity sheet here um, that you can use with your students. And I'll show you what that looks like first. So this is basically um, a PDF you can give your kids that has links that what is this? And we're going to change this for you to take Chicago out. For now, it says Chicago. If you want to get going right away, you can just explain to your kids it's for Richmond. But it gives them step by step the history of the Adavine Walk, why we're writing these stories. And then here you'll see a quick tutorial of how to upload a story for kids. It's a YouTube video, so they don't even have to read the directions if they don't want to. And there's also a video I'll show you of kids introducing this project to other kids. So as young people, telling them why it's important to do this. You get to hear from high school kids and middle school kids, and I'll play that shortly for you so you can see what that looks like. But that's where some of these resources are all linked. All right, so here is the Home Stories page. On the left-hand side, it says homestoryproject.org. And eventually today we'll all be posting on here. On the left-hand side, there seems to be something going on. On the left-hand side, when it opens, if it does, is that's not, oh, here we go. This is an intro by Paul Salopek about the Adavine Walk. This is in kid language, so really good way to introduce them to the project. And then how do I post my story? There's directions there again. So you can use that if you'd like. I don't always use this particular page. Um, and here is explore the map. So the photos on that first page too are curated from stories of people that have posted, so it's kind of neat. It will land in Chicago, but then it will open to this newly global map. You can see we've got 439 stories in Chicago. We've got 5 from Europe, 1 from Africa, 1 from South Africa, or South America, pardon me. We've got 1 from Central America there. So um, we'll start to see this map flesh out eventually. When you hover over the map, you will see stories come up. So if I was curious about this one near Milan, you would find the nearby stories. So we've got 1 from Venice and we've got 1 from Milan there. So this looks like a test story that we'll probably pull down. Once you click on the story, and I haven't read this one yet, I'm just kind of curious, you will see a couple things. Well, we'll go to any story. We'll click here in Chicago. Um, let's do, oh, this is one of my students, Tyler. Um, so you can see examples of student work. Um, Oh, there's a bunch of student work. So some of the newer ones come up on top. But let's look at this bean one. Um, so you'll see a profile picture of the person who posted it. You'll see a photo of the place that feels most like home. So the question people are answering on this map is where in your community feels most like home to you? So right now, a lot of my students are putting that they feel most at home in their bedroom. And I'm trying to get them to branch out a little bit, whether that's through interviewing other people about where in their community feels most like home, by giving them examples. Let me go back into the bean. So he says, yeah, I know it's a Chicago classic tourist destination, but it's popular for a reason. It's a beautiful piece of sculpture. There's disorientations and reflections. Um, how many group shots have been taken here? It must be in the millions. Who are you? I'm a map lover and storyteller. Where are you from? Indianapolis, but Chicago is the nearest big city. Where are you going? Washington, D.C., likely forever. So this is one of the makers of the map. But you'll see people get very deep on these questions about what their dreams are, where are they going, what their hopes and dreams are, where are you from, like what was really influential in your past. Who are you? That could be anything. It could be a description of your career. It could be your personality. It could be who you're growing into. It could be what your heart is saying. So I often have people or encourage people or students to just write whatever's at the top of your heart and head at the moment. Um, it doesn't mean it's this way forever. You can always write another home story, but we're trying to get to the heart of people to share those common human elements along with the wonderful things in our communities of home. So you'll see most of these are really well written, really deep and thoughtful. And that's what we're hoping. We're hoping our students post their very best work too. We'll talk more about that in a bit. So let me go back here. Um, I'll show you our video of, do I have it linked here? Our student video. This is our student introduction video. And it's word for word what's on the PDF for part of it.
We're all staying home these days thanks to the coronavirus. It's the right thing to do, but it can get boring. But here's a fun way to break up the day, connect with other Chicagoans, and learn more about our city. It's called Chicago Home Stories. It's an interactive map where people from all over Chicago share stories of the place where they feel most at home.
It's easy to post your own story along with a photo. After you've shared your story, you can use the map to explore the city and discover the stories that others are telling. You can't travel very far right now, but you can use the map to meet people from all over town. The Chicago Home Stories map is a part of the historic storytelling journey of Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and National Geographic Fellow Paul Sullivan, who has embarked on a multi-year walk across the planet along the pathways of our first ancestral journey out of Africa, the first human Eden.
When you share your home story, you're joining a global community of people who have contributed to Out of the Eden Walk's unprecedented and growing archive of storytelling so far. Some home stories are literally about people's dwellings. For example, Joyce wrote about her desk space. My desk is where I read, I write, I draw, I do my homework. It's a productive area that energizes me.
Others wrote about their families, like Miguel. When I'm with my family, that's when I'm home. Home is a place filled with love and affection. Like many others, Jackie talked about her favorite park. I like the swings the best. It's really fun to swing high and look at the sky. When I'm swinging, everything else goes out of my head.
Some felt most at home at restaurants. Caesar said he met Vanessa at McDonald's when he was just 10. Everything about her is great, he says. She feels like home to me, and that's why McDonald's is a place I consider home. Risha, on the other hand, says that she feels most at home in Chicago's city neighborhoods. Chicago is a place where the violence is crazy, but the teamwork is great. Every neighborhood has a community that connects together to become a family. Where do you feel most at home? Make sure to tell us in the Home Stories map.
Okay, so that's our student introduction. And here's a piece of our map. Now, what I'm doing with this with students, I would allow them a day of exploration. So I'd allow them a day to go in, read stories, see what they like, don't like, which ones move them and why. So I really give them a lot of time to explore, which we won't have time today, but that's kind of an important piece with unrolling this with young people. This also, and I'm not sure what grades you all teach, but this is a first grader. So just showing that little ones can engage with this, whether they're interviewed and someone take notes, or in the case of this, very special to me, first grader, it's my niece Lily. I kind of let her write it, and then I helped her post it. So she really liked it. She spent the rest of the evening on her iPad reading other stories from around Chicago. So the hardest part sometimes with the little ones is getting them to describe themselves. So I kind of gave her some hints, but she agreed to them very readily that yes, she was very smart. So it's like, all right, great. But yeah, she had some meaningful things to say, and you know, this can go kindergarten through university level, which is what makes it really beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to go into breakout rooms, and I'm going to lead one cafe style, and Joy is going to lead another, and we're going to come back at, I believe, 1:30 your time so that we can have you guys post. So we're going to take this next few minutes chunk of time to emulate our Home Stories Cafe. So hopefully you have a snack or a cup of coffee or tea. Since most of you are at work, we'll leave it at that, water, and we'll see you in the cafe.
Although it seems like many of you already know each other, but this will help us learn more about each other at a deeper level. So we'll spend about 15 minutes doing that. And then we'll spend another 15 minutes considering our connection to home. I would love to hear as many people as possible speak today. For those of you that don't feel comfortable, please feel free to use the chat. To share your thoughts. And for those of you that do feel comfortable, unmute yourself and speak. I love to hear your voices, almost as much as I love to hear my own. So the first set of questions, and I'm going to share them in the chat, are who are you? Where are you from? I'm sorry, who are you? Where are you from? And where are you going? So I'm going to share this in the chat. Who are you? Where are you from? Another way I like to ask the where are you from question is where have you been? And I think I'm going to rewrite that. Where have you been? It seems more literary that way. And where are you going? So I'm thinking what we can do is we can spend about 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, that's too long, 2 or 3 minutes crafting our responses to this, and then we can share them together. But what I can do first is give you an example by sharing my own response to these questions. Does that feel like a good starting place? Excellent. Thank you so much. I love the nodding heads. So who are you? My name is Joya Mukherjee. Actually, my first name is Shishmita. It just is a very heavy name, and I still don't feel adult enough to deserve that name, so I go with my middle name, Joya. I am from Chicago. I grew up in the north of the city. Thank you, Maribel. I grew up north of the city in a suburb, went to high school in the suburbs, and then I I'm a writer. I'm also an educator. I've been an educator for about 15 years. Where have you been? Is probably more a conversation of my education and my path. So I have gone to school in New York. I lived in Dublin. I moved to LA where I started teaching. And then I moved to Chicago. So I've been in all of these cities, and definitely each has had an impact on my life, an impact on my perspective. And where am I going? Currently, I'm in Chicago, and I would love to make an impact in this city. But the more and more I work with the Pulitzer Center, and the more curious I am about the world. And so there is a possibility that I may not stay in Chicago. Maybe I'll come to Richmond at some point, but it's certainly stirring that excitement, enthusiasm to see the world. So those are my responses to those questions. I'm going to give everybody, it's 12 o'clock my time. Actually, it's 11:58 my time. So I'm thinking that since it's 12:58 your time, let's take until 1:05 to respond to this question. Is that too long? What I'll do is I'll check in a couple minutes to see how you guys are doing. So let's take 5 minutes to craft our responses to these questions.
Joya, do you want us to craft them into a chat?
That's a good question, Melissa. Thank you for asking. So what I'm thinking is you can craft them on a piece of paper, you can craft them on your computer, and then we can start sharing them in the chat as you feel ready. Does that feel appropriate? Great, go for it. Thank you.
Do we have to share our responses in the chat, or are we all sharing them in the chat, or can we verbally say them?
Leslie, that's a good question. So what I'm thinking is we'll take 5 volunteers to share out loud. If we have time for more, we can definitely share more. If you feel more comfortable sharing it in the chat, please do that. If you have already shared in the chat, but you also want to say it out loud, I'm okay with that. I'm here for it. Okay. So if you're still working, continue working. These responses in the chat are so lovely. I'd love to hear somebody else's voice. So let's take our first volunteer to share out loud. And again, if you're still working, that's okay. Keep working. Eileen, I saw your hand first. So Eileen, please unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Eileen McCoy. I was born in Maryland and I lived in Brazil when I was a baby. I moved to Fairfax, Virginia when I was 4, and I grew up there for most of my life. And then in college, I lived in Radford. And during the summers, since my parents lived in the Philippines, that's where I would live every summer. I moved to Richmond in August of 2017 to be near my sister and teach in the city. And in the future, I don't know where I will end up, but family is important to me, so I want to be always in driving distance to them because they're my home.
Eileen, thanks so much for sharing. I feel like we need to give her some props, so let's give her some snaps. Thank you for sharing, Eileen.
You're welcome, thank you.
I would love to hear from somebody else. I see Philly. It says Philly. Do you prefer Phil? Tell me what you would like me to call you, sir.
Yeah, it's Philly V is my nickname. Phil is a name that I often am addressed as well, so it's all fair game. I am Phil Vollmer. That's my formal name. I'm a theatrical teaching artist who teaches theater, and I grew up in Virginia Beach, and I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot of places, and fortunate enough to be in a place where there's loud lawnmowers in the background. Where am I going? I'm going right here. Like, I have doubled down on Richmond, committed to Richmond, and committed to Binford, and I'm just excited about being here for a very, very long time. So, yeah, that's me.
Phil, thank you so much. Let's give Phil some snaps. Let's take a couple more volunteers. I love getting to know you. Tracy, I see your hand.
Well, I am a daughter of parents that grew up in Jim Crow. So they know all about that, and I've got all sorts of stories about that. I'm a mother of multiple generations of children. My oldest is 26. My baby is 8. I'm a teacher of over 1,000 students over a 19-year span. I was born in New York, but I was raised in Farmville, Virginia. And I always say that because from 14 on is when you were raised. So I have that New York City swag and that country congeniality all in one place in me. So I got all of that. And I hope to go quietly into the night 12 years from now, and I hope to go to retirement. That's what I hope for.
Tracy, it's great to meet you. Let's give Tracy some snaps. I love the way you package yourself. Wonderful. Let's take a couple more volunteers. I love hearing about you. Trinell, please unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because I had headphones, but I don't know, they stopped working. I am Trinell. I'm a school counselor. I lived in Richmond my whole life. I do love to travel, so I've been to several different countries, Jamaica, Aruba, Mexico. I'm going back to Jamaica in January, hopefully, if everything is good with COVID. I don't know where I'm going, but I have a very positive outlook on life. My family is very important to me. We are scattered like through the East Coast area, so wherever it will definitely be on the East Coast. But Richmond is my home, and I actually was a Benford Middle School student, so I feel welcome, I feel loved, and I just love it.
Trinell, let's give Trinell some snaps. Thank you so much for sharing. I also love the way you talk about the community and how that is such an important part of your identity. Thank you so much for adding that to the conversation. I think we have time for a couple more. Does anybody else want to share? Leslie, I see your hand.
Hey everybody, I'm Leslie. I'm a first year 7th grade science teacher here at Benford, and I was born and raised right here in Richmond. But I've spent a lot of my time in Hampton Roads kind of deciding and figuring out what I wanted to do and what I want to do with my life. And I would consider my journey into adulthood as a place that I am going or a place that I'm headed.
I love that. Leslie,
Yeah.
Let's give Leslie some snaps. Thank you so much for sharing. Do we have one more volunteer? I think we have time for one more person. If not, you know what I think would be really fun right now? We've had so many amazing stories in the chat, and we've also had so many courageous people sharing their personal summaries or their personal stories. Is there anything that you heard here that connected with you, that resonated with you? If there's something that you heard, you can unmute yourself and share it, or you can say it in the chat. You can type it in the chat. But I think it'd be, I see you unmuting yourself.
I will jump in. I heard Trinell say Aruba, and I've been looking up Aruba trips, so we need to chat because I've never been. I need info.
Listen, if you guys are going, just bring a big suitcase and put me in it.
Thank you.
Jillian, I saw your hand too. Would you like to share?
Yeah, I just found out that Phil went to Cox High School. So we're both from Virginia Beach. I did not know that. I went to Ocean Lakes.
I love this, making a connection. Anybody else want to share something they heard that they loved or resonated with them? Okay, well, if you hear something shared in the chat, everybody's privy to those conversations. We can move on to the next piece. So our next piece is, and I'm going to share this question in the chat. What is a place in your community that feels most like home to you, and why? This is something, this question I think is something that says a lot about a person. And it's an interesting question at the moment because so many of us are confined to our homes. So what I'm thinking that we can do is I'll share an example with you. I'll share my own example. And then we can take a couple minutes to craft this response and then share again the way we previously shared for the first three questions. So for me, a place in my community that feels most like home is actually a deeper question about what home feels like now. I think that these past 7 months for me have been, certainly challenging, but also foundationally altering. I think that because I've been confined to my home, my sense of home is starting to shift to wanting to feel less anchored to one place and feeling and capturing this electric feeling of being with self outside of space. And so for me, I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but when I said it out loud, I heard how that language sounded. So for me, home is really now by the lake, because looking at the water, it looks different every time. And I think that it is a reflection of the way this time is so electric and transformative for us, and reshifting our relationship to our own personal spaces. So for me, that feeling of possibility is really captured in the lake. And that's really where I feel most at home. But I've heard many people in this meeting alone talking about home being connected to people, connected to their childhood. So everybody has a different definition or a key phrase that means home to them. And so that's what I want for you guys to do, to really capture that meaning and that space for yourselves. So the question again is, what is the place in your community that feels most like home, and why? Let's take a couple minutes to respond to that question. So it's 1:11 right now. Let's take until 1:15, and then we'll come back. Does that sound like an appropriate amount of time? Great. So as you write, you can craft this on your own paper, on your own computer, and feel free to share it whenever you're ready in the chat, and then we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. All right, everyone. Some of these responses are so beautiful. I love the emotion that's being captured. I love some of the descriptive writing. Thank you so much for sharing. Does anybody want to? Let's take 5 volunteers. I think we have time for that. Let's take some volunteers. Who would like to either restate their story or share for the first time? Leslie, thank you for sharing.
I wrote, what did I say? Let me find it. I said that a place in my community that feels most like home is the overlook of my city, Richmond City. Whenever I would get on 95 from traveling back from Norfolk, I would get this warm feeling, a feeling of complete comfort. Having not been to back to Norfolk in almost 2 years, I still get that feeling whenever I'm on 95 and I see the overlook of Richmond, be it day or night.
Leslie, thank you so much for sharing that. Let's give Leslie some snaps. Not only was that beautifully composed, it had some movement, it had so much of your personality. It made me want to know you even more. Thank you, Leslie. Anybody else want to share their story? Eileen, thank you. And then Ray, I'd love to hear from you right afterwards.
So if we're talking about Richmond, I said Binford feels like my home because it's been my constant place since I've lived in Richmond. I've lived in 3 different homes in Richmond, but Binford has been like my steady place with my Binford family. And my other home here is my sister.
Thank you, Eileen. Let's give Eileen some snaps. I love how we learned so much about you too. And now we've also learned about a key person in your life. So thank you so much for sharing. Who was next? Ray.
So when we were told to prepare and bring a picture of some place in the community that felt like home, and my brain didn't go in this direction at all when I was thinking of that. It came up today during the conversation, but throughout my entire life growing up in different places, I've always felt the most home in the theater when it's dark, like during rehearsals. I did community theater when I was a kid because that's all we had. We didn't have really theater in our schools. I've always been a dancer, so I spent most of the time in, I did the Nutcracker, so we were in the theater a lot. And I have always loved that time, like while you're waiting, when other people are rehearsing, or you get there early, you came right after school, rehearsal doesn't start yet, you're in the theater. The space is beautiful. I've always felt like so content and grounded and like surrounded by my people that are most important to me have always been my relationships through dance or theater or whatever. So those have always been, where I felt like most at home. And then, so in Richmond, I did work for, 4 years. I was the education manager at Virginia Repertory Theater, and I felt so lucky because my office was literally in the theater. So from my desk, I could hear the tour companies rehearsing, their voices singing or going over lines or whatever. And I just loved being in that space. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's give Ray some snaps. Ray, am I saying your name correctly?
Rayanne. Yeah.
Say it again.
Rayanne.
Rayanne, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I love the dynamics of the dark in the theater. I think that that is exciting. I love that description. And I love how you tied it to a personal evolution or a personal trans. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'd love to take a couple other volunteers. Would anybody else like to share? And in the meantime, while we're sharing, if you're hearing something that you think is really resonant or really exciting or something new, share it with us. We'd love to hear more from you in the chat, and we'll take some time to do that reflexive piece. But I'd love to hear from about 2 more volunteers. I think we have the time. Aaron, is that your hand? I'd love to hear from you, Aaron.
Yes. Can you hear me? All right. Cool. So one of the places that feels most at home to me, like now, is at the park. We have a community playground in our complex. Then we also have a park not too far from me, and so I like to take my kids out and just to see all the other kids just running around and playing. It just does something for me. So that feels like at home.
Aaron, thanks so much for sharing. Let's give Aaron some snaps. I love that very relatable image that you shared. I think that we've all seen that and certainly feels like home too, especially the way that you stated it. So thank you so much, Aaron. Tyler, I see your hand up. Can we hear from you?
Yeah, I would say that yeah, you can hear me. Sorry, thought I was still on mute. I would say that my home is like what feels most like home is on my parents' back porch during a summer storm with me and both my sisters and their husbands and my nieces and nephews there. Just fun times that we've spent together and a lot of memories that have been made there over the years, even though it was not the home that I grew up in. It has become home to all of us over the past few years that they lived there.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Let's give Tyler some snaps. I saw that description in the chat, and it was a very quick description, but it was also a dynamic description. So thank you so much for sharing that. I could take one more volunteer, unless anybody saw something in the chat or heard something that really resonated with them. I'd love to hear some of those reflections as well. You can just unmute yourself. You don't have to raise your hand. I've also realized that there's 2 screens here that I haven't been looking at. So, haha.
So
I just wanted to.
Tyler,
Ooh,
I'm sorry, somebody else was speaking.
No, go ahead, Ms. Fowler. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thanks. So Tyler, you're talking about the storms and being on the porch. When it stormed in my childhood, we all would get in one room together. So that made me think of my family and brought back precious memories. Like the whole family, we would be in one room until the storm passed over. So that really resonated with me.
Thank you, Chanel. Who was the other voice that I heard?
That was me. I just wanted to say I just feel really connected to everybody. Like even just in a few sentences, I feel like we really get to know everyone's soul. I mean, like who people are in their core. So this is just really nice, especially since we haven't been in person in a very long time. So thank you.
Thank you, Jillian, for that feedback. I have never met any of you, but I feel like I'm learning a little bit, and I'm curious about all of you now. So you might just, get unwarranted hellos from me via email or something, because I want to know more about you. Anybody else have a reflection that they'd like to share? I want to give everybody the space to talk.
Well, just the observation that Jillian made, just kind of adding back onto that, hearing Jillian talk about how important water is to her and feeling like home, and us both growing up at the beach and that connection that I have to water and how that is so important to me in order to feel like home is just being around a large body of water. So again, those deeper connections because I know she grew up at the beach. It's just cool. It's just super cool how that all works out.
Thanks so much for sharing, Phil. Tracy, I saw your hand too.
I have never been a homebody. I've always been a person who wanted to be outside, out in the street. And my husband used to fuss at me all the time. So what this did is really, this whole pandemic has brought me to a place where I really appreciate my home a lot more. I never really realized what I had at home until I was confined to my home and I was imprisoned in my home. But I can now really think back and think about what we've done over this last 6 months and how much we are anchor and how I do have kids that stop by and see me, and I did have situations where I've come in my yard and my students that I didn't even know were my kids' friends were in the backyard playing together on the trampoline, or they were in the pool together. So this is an anchor for me. Like, this is the place where I do feel at home, and I would never have known that if it wasn't for the pandemic.
It's a really, thank you for sharing that. Also very relatable because so many of us are going through well, we're all going through this experience. It's a global experience. Has anybody, this is kind of an off the cuff question now that's being inspired by Tracy's reflection, but has anybody felt a different connection to their home because of COVID or because of their experiences? Trinell, yes. Tyler, yes. Yes, Phil, I see Phil's hand. Yeah. Does anybody want to speak on that? Lisa, thank you. Does anybody want to speak on that? Have you felt closer to home? Has feeling been warm? Has it been challenging? Let's talk about that for a couple minutes. And then I'm thinking we can end our conversation on reflecting on how we might use this tool with our students. But anybody want to talk about their experience with home and COVID? Yes, I see your hand, Leslie.
Well, I'm actually the opposite of Tracy. I am such a homebody. Like, I'm always at home. So I've been loving being able to stay here and I'm a homebody. So I'm the complete opposite of Tracy.
That's interesting because you also seem like an extrovert. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I can be both, actually. Just
What is
depends.
that word? There's a word for someone who can do both. I don't know what it is, but I know there's a word.
I think it's like an ambivert.
Ambivert. So you're an ambivert. Is that
I
an
guess so.
Not trying to put you in a box, but apparently I'm trying to put you in a box. Ambivert. Very cool.
That is okay.
Yeah. Anybody else want to share their experiences through COVID and their relationship to home? I see. Is it Kira? Would you like to share?
Sure. I had a unique experience where I moved into my own place the week of March that we got out of school. So it was like the craziest amount of socializing combined with nothing. And then I usually waitress when I wasn't working. And so like everything stopped. And it was really interesting because it made me have a really deep connection to like building my home, feeling comfortable in my home, being okay, being alone, being okay cooking, being okay doing nothing, which was just new. So I feel like a completely different person sometimes just with like the last 6 months, and my relationship to my space is very different.
Kira, thank you for sharing that. That is so relatable. And I feel if anybody else relates to that, give me a thumbs up. That is such a relatable experience. Yes. So it looks like we have about 5 minutes. If you have further reflections on this question, please share them in the chat. I think I'm going to save this chat because there's been so many lovely responses. So it will not disappear in the ether. But with our last 5 minutes, 4 minutes, just kidding, I'd love to hear some reflections on how this might work in your classroom. And maybe some guiding questions, but certainly not, you're not anchored to these questions, might be, do you think that this practice would be an effective tool in your classroom or effective process in your classroom? How do you think it might impact your students, especially now in this time where we're learning and teaching remotely? Any reflections on this question? And certainly you can share it in the chat or you can share with us. What are your thoughts?
I think when discussing with children, it would be like important to let them know that home is not necessarily the physical space that you may live in, but a place within your heart. So, if a kid feels like they're at home when they're at school, like this is what they could describe, because I don't want them to get stuck on the word home as opposed to the feeling of being at home somewhere.
Trinell, thanks for sharing that. I want to give you snaps for that. That helped me a little bit think of this question in a classroom context. I appreciate that. Anybody else want to share? I could take 2 or 3 more people. We've got some time.
I can share. I was saying that I was talking to my children, and they so much want the connection with us. They really, really, really want the connection to us. So as we visit places and we post these places we visit to them, I can see there will be a lot of inspiration between the exchange between us. So yeah, I've experienced this too. I've experienced this and they've experienced this. And at least if even if it's not a writing piece, because our babies sometimes they don't want to write. If you can have the exchange piece, the conversation piece, that's going to be extraordinary.
Yes. Also, after being, thank you, Snaps, for that response. I want to give you your props. Also, as a teacher, oh, we have about a minute left, so I'm going to talk very quickly. As a writing teacher for many, many years, one way, a great starting place for students when encountering a writing task that can often trigger feelings of avoidant feelings or wanting to avoid the task is just to have that conversation and just to let them know that they have ideas in that way. So the way that Tracy talked about having the conversation is a great starting point, especially for students that might feel challenged by the task of writing. So we have about 20 seconds left. I want to make sure to save this chat. In our next section, I believe that we are going to be writing our home stories and posting them, but it has been such a pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you for your time, and I love getting to know you.
It was amazing. Hopefully the other group had a nice time too. Yeah, truly, I just feel like so expanded by people's stories and the sharing and the amount of heart and bravery. That was really, really beautiful. Joya, hopefully we can touch base because I want to hear all about your session too. The good thing when you guys go to do this with your students is to keep them small. I like to keep it around 15 or less when we can, just so everyone has time to exchange stories and then come back for questions for each other if we have time. We didn't get to everybody in our group, but those that shared, I would say blew my mind a bit. I can't stop smiling. My heart feels warm. I'm just very moved. I learned some life lessons from you guys and some good pizza places too. So a good mix of things, of the important things, right? So thank you everybody for being here, for sharing that. Not done yet. We're going to post our home stories, and with students, I go through this a lot more slowly of the rules of posting. I edit their work first. We go through a few revisions, make sure their pictures and our own are and Joya's sharing my sentiments too, and it is an honor. What you guys shared was just truly memorable and moving. And Joya was expressing something along those lines as well with her group. Um, so with students, couple notes before you guys go off, and I'll show you quickly how to post before we send you off. Is make sure they're not stealing pictures from the internet, not stealing, that's the wrong word, but like copyright infringement. Make sure it's an original photo or a drawing. Lots of my kids have to draw because their home place is far away. Sometimes they get pictures from their parents. And then because of child safety laws, don't let them use their last name or their home address. Those are the most important things. But kids like to grab these stock photos and use them, and nope, you need to draw it. Use Google Draw, use your crayons, pencils, whatever, but it should be an original photo um, without giving too much information away in terms of their address and things like that. So I'm going to share my screen one more time super quickly, and I'm going to give you guys the quick version of posting, and then you'll be off to go do it. Here we go. Is this linked? Yes, good. Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory. There's just a couple things I want to point out. You land again in the Explore the Map section, and it's at homestoryproject.org. Let me move our pictures here. So then you click on this Add Your Home Story button, and you'll click and drag or upload a picture of your home place. And it says for our kids, not from the internet. Hopefully they read that. Mine do not always. A snazzy, catchy title or spunky title. Someone described their kids as spunky. I like that word. A spunky title would be great. And then the location, you can either type in the address, the name of the place, or find on a map. So you can find the exact place. Don't put your home address, of course. If you're going to use your house or if kids use their home, just have them put the city would be fine, like Mount Prospect, Illinois, or wherever, Richmond, Virginia. Their name, we can put our first and last names or just first name, whatever you're comfortable with. And then those are these questions to answer. Who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? Add a profile picture if you would. People feel more connected when there's a photo, but if you're uncomfortable, then don't. It can also be a landscape. Your email, we would never really use this unless someone on our team feels like someone's in danger or something like that. My kids, I have them put the teacher's school address. So again, it's just if we need to contact one person, and I don't think we've ever had to do that, but then you have to hit this green button. Lots of kids forget that. You're accepting the terms and then submit. Then you'll see it pop up right away on our HomeStories map. So there you go. Stick around if you have any questions. You can stay on here, mute yourselves, go post, and then we're going to come back at the end for some closing notes. So here, let me find the URL.
It does go to the Chicago Home Stories, Tracy.
Yeah, it's the same map.
It's the same map.
It just says HomeStories now. We took Chicago off it. The whole map is now a global map. So just hit the right part where it says explore the map. Under the HomeStories logo, there's a little white circle that says explore the map. And then the URL says Chicago, but it's a global map now. It'll land on the world instead of in Chicago.
Is there a way, every photo I put in is putting it sideways. Is there a way to make the photo rotate?
There is, my kids use an app.
No, my picture is not oriented sideways. My picture is oriented the correct way. It's
Yeah,
when they upload it, it's turning it.
It prefers, is it vertical? Is it a vertical picture?
Yes.
That's why.
So the photos have to be in landscape in order for them to fit in here?
Usually, what you can do is take a screenshot of it and make it horizontal by your screenshot, and then it will go in correctly. They can go in horizontally. It just takes a few tries. Like that one of my niece I showed, that was horizontal. It took me a few tries to get it in right. But the fastest way is usually just a screenshot.
I have a question. Every photo that I'm using is saying that it is too small. So I've tried like several different photos, and they're all saying that they are like it needs to be at least 700 pixels.
Try the screenshot too, though that might make it smaller. I'll have to find out from the kids what that app is that they're all using. Do you have like the full-size photo off your phone or anything?
No, I don't, but I can try to figure it out.
Try that.
For my phone, I selected large image. Like if you emailed a picture to yourself, just choose the large image, and it popped up, because at first I kept getting the same message.
Okay, thank you.
Joy, this is good for us to put in our facts, our FAQs page. These little tips.
I do want to say though, it won't let me submit unless I put my email address in. Even though it says it's optional, you have to put your email address in to submit.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We'll remind our team that. Maybe we'll remove that optional. We won't have any reason to use it. It's just in extreme circumstance cases.
So I heard James saying something that the picture was sideways. I'm having that same issue. How do we fix that again?
Are you trying to upload a vertical picture?
Yeah.
The easiest thing I found to do is to just take a screenshot of it. Hopefully that'll work. Sometimes if you try a couple times, it'll let that one in. But maybe try and screenshot it so it's a little more horizontal.
Okay.
Thanks, sorry. It's kind of a basic kind of map, but it does a lot, but it's kind of wonky too at times. Good question. It just submits. Once you hit submit, it'll just post to the map right away. There's no wait time. We don't vet it anymore. It just appears on the map.
Do we need to put our last name where it says name?
You don't have to unless you'd like to.
Okay.
You can put one initial or whatever. Make one up. Yeah. Yeah, so we can call people back. We can call people back. It's 12:52. You can finish this, whenever you have time to today. Um, this is a great thing to do with kids. Like we said, you can have kids interview other people. Families can get involved. School community nights can post home stories and do cafes. So this is just the beginning. Such an honor to be here with you guys today. We are having, and I put a link into the Eventbrite in the chat box. We're having our Chicago Home Stories Cafe this Sunday evening, but you're welcome to join us. We've had guests from other places and other countries even. So please come. Uh, Oh, okay. Sorry, I was just trying to read the comments. I also put my email address in. Please stay in contact. Follow Out of Eden Walk Chicago if you'd like to see other cafes we're having. I think Rob will put us back in touch eventually for possibly connecting our students in the future. We'll work on that. But does anyone have any last minute questions? You can sign up on the Eventbrite to come join us Sunday. There's my email for any questions about this, the Out of Eden Walk, anything at all. We're here. I'd love to hear from you guys and stay connected somehow. This is a stellar group, and now I want my whole staff to do this. We haven't done that yet at my school, but I think I'm going to suggest it. So thank you, Richmond, for this wonderful example of some teacher PD. You can do the story later. If now is not the right time, you can do more than one story. Go ahead, Stacy. Oh, you're just waving bye.
No, I was clapping.
Oh, you're clapping. Okay, that looks different than on my Google Meet. Thank you guys. Well, clapping to you guys too. Thank you so much. Any last words, Rob? Or
Yeah, so just let's give Joya and Tracy just a huge round of applause or clapping, whatever it is. That was great. As she alluded to, we'd love to connect your students with Chicago students. We'd love for you to do this with your students. We can help facilitate that. Don Belt can help facilitate with capturing images and photos if you want to do it as a community circle. So my double secret agenda is to blow up that map. So our target is there's 430 some in Chicago. It looks like there's 17 now. So I want to see our voices there. So thank you all. Thank you, Tracy and Joya. That was amazing. I can't believe how much I miss seeing your guys' faces. It's been a loss running around that school. So hopefully we can do that again soon. Come to our neighborhood this weekend. There's lots of music going on. Bands are playing. So it's a safe thing outside. We'll send that link out. Shameless plug for mine and Stacy's kids. But anyway, thank you all. Have a great rest of the day. Joya, Tracy, thank you guys.
thank you. Thanks everybody. So nice to meet you.
Nice
Good
to meet
luck.
everybody.
Bye.